Hello and welcome to Epiphytic Cacti. Today I wanted to talk about the first Schlumbergera hybrid bloom of the season. I purchased this from Whitton's greenhouse just a few months ago. This is Beni Kujyaku, and I am not certain that I am saying that correctly, but there we go. And the S.ORS that is on this tag is in reference to it being a Schlumbergera Orssichiana hybrid. I wasn't really able to find any information on this hybrid to determine whether or not Schlumbergera Orssichiana, which is a species, was the seed parent or mother or the pollen parent or father. I did some research on this yesterday because I wasn't totally clear myself. There's like a standard sort of reference that you can use for a specific type of crossing. Orssichiana species crosses with Truncata, they would actually be known as Schlumbergera x Reginae or Schlumbergera queens. And a couple of things that I have noticed about these is, and I think that this is because of the Orssichiana lineage, is that Orssichiana actually blooms earlier in the season. I confirmed that. I did some further research on that, and it does actually bloom earlier in the season than, say, your Truncata. These are all species that I'm talking about, and all of the hybrids that we have generally came from these Schlumbergera species. In the case of Orssichiana, it blooms earlier, it has larger clades, and it has much, much larger flowers. And everything that I've seen so far has indicated to me that it is a very pendant style species. So you can see how this is really cascading and being pendant like this. One thing that I will say is that, in doing some research, and something that you will notice, I think, in more recent times, is that prior, when you had the Christmas cactus, which would have been the Schlumbergera russelliana species, you would have had that crossed with a Schlumbergera truncata species. And what would have happened as a result is what we commonly refer to as the Christmas cactus. That blooms at a little bit of a later time because of the russelliana tendency to bloom a little bit later in the season, a little bit more towards Christmas. And then Truncata is just kind of right in the middle there. It'll bloom like just around Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. So you can end up with, I think, some really interesting and curious things that can happen with some of these in terms of their bloom time and in terms of their clade and in terms of their growth pattern. Your Thanksgiving cactus or your Truncata hybrids, there was a very strong push to actually get those hybrids to stop growing in a pendant style. And my guess is that the reason why there was such a strong push about this is that it actually must be more expensive. And it makes sense, right? Because if you think about the pendant plants, if they have to grow pendant like this, you don't have as much room, so you can't actually cultivate as many of them. I think that when Schlumbergera truncata specifically, and you will notice this, that if you go to any of your local big box stores and stuff like that, what you're going to end up with is a whole lot of Schlumbergera truncata hybrids. I don't even know the last time that I saw a legitimate Christmas cactus, that russelliana truncata hybrid. I don't know when the last time is that I have ever even seen one of those commercially available. And these, I've never seen these commercially available, particularly because I believe that Schlumbergera Orssichiana is something that is not, it was a species that was actually found considerably later. I don't remember the exact dates around that, but it was found later. So there's, some kind of wonky information there. But that explains why this kid is blooming right now in such an early time period. So right now, a lot of my Truncata hybrids, they're definitely budding. My russelliana hybrids, they're definitely not yet. So, but you can definitely see that any of the Schlumbergera queens or Reginae hybrids, they're definitely trying to bloom considerably earlier. So that's a really interesting thing. And I think that something can kind of come about with that, especially if you're really into your holiday cacti and you're kind of an avid collector or you want to be an avid collector. one of the fun things about that is now there's such a variety available that you can get a much longer bloom period because you have the Orssichiana hybrids, because you have the Truncata hybrids, and because you have the Russelliana hybrids. So you can totally extend the time that you can enjoy these absolutely gorgeous blooms. So this guy here, I mean, I just think that he's really, really pretty stunning. He's just really very stunning. And you can definitely see that the clades, they're definitely a little bit larger than your standard Truncata hybrid. But I wouldn't say that it's like a massive difference. I think that where I actually noticed the largest difference with this one is in the size of the flowers. So you can see, with my hand in here, the size of the flowers. And your standard Truncata hybrids don't usually reach sizes quite like that. You can see I love these flowers because they always remind me of fairies. That's what I think of when I see these flowers. It's like some kind of gorgeous, beautiful fairies all over the place. And because this one is kind of pendant too, there's a couple of other things. The best way to display plants like this, because they hang down, and if you're just looking at the tops of the flowers, it's really not all that. It's not as beautiful as it could be. It's still beautiful. It's just not as beautiful as it could be. So it's one of those things, where you definitely want to hang them and look up at them. So I'm going to just kind of adjust this camera a little bit here. There we go. And so you can see, if you adjust it a little bit and then you're looking up at them, how much more grand that display is. It's really beautiful. I very, very much like this. I very much like these Orssichiana hybrids. It's my first time ever really having these Orssichiana hybrids. I'm actually really just kind of excited and kind of glad to be getting into, I think, some of the other epiphytic cacti, because I think that, unique ones, they have so many different things to offer. Like, I didn't know that about the Easter cactus hybrids, that they had such an extended bloom period, or their flowers opened and closed with the daylight. I didn't know any of that, because I think I was maybe a little bit limiting myself, I think, on what epiphytic cacti that I actually grew. So it's really a fun adventure. I think that a lot of times too, people think that these are throwaway plants, and they grow them commercially like they are. Just like poinsettia, or your Norfolk Island pines, or your rosemaries that they sell during the holidays. It's one of those things where you just assume it's a throwaway plant. These just definitely don't have to be throwaway plants at all. It's just not that hard to keep them alive and grow them into great, big, beautiful, beautiful, lush, gorgeous plants. So I hope you've enjoyed the Schlumbergera Reginae hybrid Beni Kujyaku as much as I have. Thank you for watching, and happy cacti growing.